Okay, so let's discuss these latest developments with Ropafadzo Maphosa, who is a law specialist at the University of Johannesburg. Thank you so much for your time on the program this hour. So, oh my goodness, a lot has been said around this particular issue. And of course, Afriforum as an organization has always held the view that, there's a state-sponsored genocide against white farmers in the country. Perhaps if we can start by breaking down what the legal definition of genocide would be and what are the constitutional provisions of it.
Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, a lot has definitely been said over the past couple of weeks, and we're seeing multiple reactions to some of the statements that have been made by Afriforum. Now, the Genocide Convention defines genocide as an act committed with the intent to destroy a national, racial, religious, or even an ethnic group. And such an act could entail killing members of that particular group. It could be causing bodily harm to that particular group or inflicting some conditions to make life very difficult for a particular group of people. So when we see Afriforum alleging white genocide in South Africa, it brings all these elements to mind. And I think if they were to proceed with such an assertion, it would be quite difficult to prove that there's an intent to destroy white farmers or white people in South Africa.
And this would actually now mean that, it opens the floodgates to a whole lot of elements as well. And the burden of proof would also be lying on Afriforum, essentially.
Yes, absolutely. And I should also mention that I'm not sure how recent the allegations are by White Forum about white genocide, but just last year, they brought a complaint towards the press ombudsman against Sunday World, saying Sunday World falsely accused them of alleging white genocide. So even they are now retreating from some of the words that have been uttered. And so it's very interesting to see how they're approaching this particular issue going forward.
And also to bring in that element of mis and disinformation. We heard the South African government has also hit out to say that they've been spreading mis and disinformation. And this is quite a serious thing, having seen how we've taken, mis and disinformation serious, especially with the elections here in the country, but also in general as well, because it does sometimes sound alarm bells unnecessarily. So just how important is this as well?
That is actually extremely important, especially now when we are seeing that it's now leading to tensions with other countries. There are now diplomatic tensions between the USA and South Africa, and this really all comes from misinformation. As some government leaders have pointed out, the statements that are being made by the US president and other members of his cabinet are based on factual inaccuracy. There are statements being made that the new Expropriation Act is going to lead to land that belongs to white people being taken from them. And this is simply not correct, because the Act makes it very clear that expropriation without compensation will only be taking place in terms of unused land, and it will only be happening where it is just and equitable to do so and where it is in the public interest to do so. And I think this would require simple research from some of our state leaders before they make certain allegations, because while these information is being peddled, the information is actually very much available on the internet. A simple Google search would put you to rest some of the allegations that we're seeing right now.
And Ms. Maphosa, I want to take it back to basics now, just look at what the rules say. Does Solidarity, the Solidarity movement and Afriforum actually have legal authority to engage directly with, for instance, a foreign government on matters of national policy, for instance?
Naturally, when it comes to matters of national policy, only our government officials would have the authority to do so. However, there is actually nothing stopping organizations such as Afriforum and other interest groups from making a case before state leaders for protection if they feel they are in danger. So national policy naturally would be within the realm of our government leaders.
And quite interestingly, actually, as we're having this conversation, I'm looking at what you've also said, that you actually believe that what Afriforum has done up to so far actually fails the legal test of treason, and therefore the organization's actions are not treasonous. Talk to us about that.
So the definition of treason in South African law would be an offense that involves acts with the intention to overthrow the government or undermine the country's security. So under our legislation, you would look at conduct such as what has that particular group done, and is it with the intention to overthrow the government of the republic? Is it trying to coerce the government into action or inaction using violence? And is it also violating or threatening the independence or security of the republic? So I think an argument could be made that groups such as Afriforum are not trying to overthrow the government. However, we could also make an argument that they're now threatening the security of the republic, right? Because we're seeing how other countries are responding to the statements being made by these interest groups. But the key element, as I said, of treason is that there must be an intention on the part of the perpetrator. So Afriforum, I've seen some of their statements in the news over the past couple of days, and they're saying their intention was never to provoke the US into withdrawing aid, for example. So essentially, they are saying they don't have an intention to threaten the security of the republic. What is happening is simply a response to the policies from South Africa. So if this were to become a court case, for example, I don't see a successful conviction on the grounds of treason, because it would be very difficult to prove that these groups are acting with the intent to threaten the security of the country.
And are there any legal restrictions on South African organizations perhaps lobbying a foreign government against their own country's policies?
Not that I know of, but I must say we do have legislation against misinformation. And for example, right now, most of the statements that we are seeing are being made on the internet. And we've got a Cybercrimes Act, which actually criminalizes the intentional distribution of false information, which may cause harm to individuals or national security. So I think some of the conduct we are seeing would qualify under such an offense.
All right, I must thank you so much for joining us. And that is, of course, Ropafadzo Maphosa, who's a law specialist at the University of Johannesburg. Thanks very much indeed for your time on the program.